One. If you'd please put your phones on silent or vibrate, I would appreciate it. I'm going to call the Planning Commission meeting to order and establish that we have a quorum present. Terry, would you please lead us in the prayer?
Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the beautiful day you've given us today. Thank you for allowing us to live in the greatest country in the world. Please be with the planning department today as they present cases to us, and please be with each planning commissioner. Help us to make good decisions that will benefit both our city and each individual who's requesting items on today's agenda. Thank you for your many blessings in your Son's most holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we're going to do a recognition of service of previous planning commissioners.
Whether face you guys or face out, but I want to just say a couple of words first. We know that all of you that sit up there and those who have sat up there in the past definitely don't do it for the money. We know that you all do this for a love of the community and a willingness to serve for the community, so we do appreciate all the time, not only the time to attend these meetings, but also to do the research beforehand to learn about these cases, so we do appreciate all of your time. So first, I'd like to call Mark Crisp up. Mark he served 1.5 terms on the Planning Commission, and so we'd like to present you with this. Sammy Farmer. Sammy served over 2 terms on the commission. And Valerie Priest. Valerie served over 2 terms as well. She also served as the chairperson for a while, and we appreciate that. We know that's a little bit tougher job than just sitting up there, but we do appreciate it. Thank you.
John, we also have a new Planning Commission member, Joe Self.
Yes. Joe Self is our newest appointee, and we want to welcome him today as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Next is the consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. Do I have a motion?
I have a question. The minutes were changed that you corrected yesterday for Travis to sign.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing out those things.
I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Looks like 7-0. On to the regular agenda. Subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. Kerr Addition, public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a final plat for the Kerr Addition and a variance from Section 103A2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a minimum paving width of 36 feet with no sidewalk in lieu of the required 36 feet with a 4-foot sidewalk, or 40 feet with no sidewalk, for 34th Street, an urban local road being 0.28 acres located at 101 West 34th Street.
Good morning, Planning Commission. Hillary Bucher, Senior Planner. We're going to start with the .28 acres. The address of the home on the left side is 101 West 34th Street, SMD number 2, Tom Thompson in the Riverside neighborhood. So the proposed final plat is combining 2 unplatted tracts into 1 platted lot. They are also requesting a variance, as Travis stated, from 103A2 to allow 34th Street to remain 36 feet in lieu of the required 36 foot with a 4-foot sidewalk or 40 feet with no sidewalk. Staff's recommending approval of the variance. We believe the current streets do not pose a safety risk, and the neighborhood is already existing, established neighborhood. The streets are mostly there, and the lots create a unique situation. We believe that the current street widths are sufficient for the area, and we don't believe that granting this variance would vary any other provisions of the ordinance. So based on those, we are recommending approval of the final plat, subject to 3 conditions. We'll need a copy of the tax certificate for taxes paid. We have to improve West 34th or obtain a variance, as stated today, and then they have to improve a proposed driveway. So, and staff is also recommending approval of the variance from 103A2. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, no questions? Do we have any public comment? No public comment. We have a motion.
Motion to accept as presented. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as it's been presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 0. 7-0. Okay. Next item, replat of 13A of replat of tracts 13 and 14, Southwest Acres Edition. Public hearing and consideration for a request for approval of a replat of tract 13A of the replat of tracts 13 and 14, Southwest Acres Edition, and 5 variances from the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance. 1, variance from Section 9.3A1 to allow for direct and abutting access onto a private road in lieu of a publicly dictated right-of-way. 2, variance from Section 10.2C1 and Section 10.2C4 in order to install a curb and gutter and to allow for caliche surfacing for the private street. 3, a variance from Section 10.3A1 to allow for substandard right-of-way of 47 feet in lieu of 60 feet for the private street. 4, a variance from Section 9.3C2 to allow for line road, a dead-end street, to have a distance of 3,200 feet in lieu of the maximum of 750 feet. And 5, a variance from Section 10.3A2 to allow for pavement width of 20 feet in lieu of 30 feet for line road, a rural local road being 8 acres located at 11,475 Line Road in the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction.
Hillary Bucher, continuing on with Southwest Acres. We're looking at an 8-acre tract south of the intersection of Line Road and RM 584, and it's located in the ETJ. So the proposed final plat would lay out the 5 lots with the flags that would, in the end, touch Line Road, and the private road would go along those flags. So the 5 variances requested, Travis had already stated them, but to allow a private road. Number 2 would be to not pave a curb and gutter and to allow for caliche surfacing. 3, to allow a substandard right-of-way. 4, to allow Line Road, a dead end, to have a maximum greater than 750. And the 5th one would be to allow substandard paving for Line Road. Staff is recommending approval of the variances. The addressing requirements for the county are requiring this private street for emergency personnel, so they will actually be addressed off of a private street to allow fire service and emergency services to be able to locate them in the county. The existing streets, Line Road does not propose any, is not the result of the applicant, and no current plans to annex this area are in the immediate future. The existing street length and configuration are already in the area, and they're sufficient and pre-existing, and the applicant is dedicating the land for the right-of-way online. So if we ever needed to improve it, we would have the right-of-way. So staff's recommendation is to approve the final plat for the Stretz addition, subject to 4 conditions of approval, and approve the variance to allow a private road, and approve the variance to not pave the curb and gutter, allow for cleachy surfacing, approve the variance to allow the substandard right-of-way for the private street, approve the variance to Line Road, a dead-end street having a maximum of 750 feet, approve the variance to allow the pavement width of 20 feet in lieu of the 30 for Line Road. And then the conditions are change the name on the plat where it says South Line Road. Currently, we want it to read Line Road, which is, we believe, the correct name per the addressing. We need a copy of the tax certificate. We have to pave a public street or request a variance for an approved private street, pave the additional 5 feet of Line Road or approve a variance, provide proof of correspondence with Contra Rural Water to guarantee they have water service, and submit a drainage study if required in the future. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
See the configuration that you have before you today, that's gonna change, so this plat's gonna change. They're gonna take a private road and they're gonna extend it all the way back. So those flag lots, in essence, will not exist. Everyone will be addressed off a private road. So that plat will change. That's what Hillary was getting at.
Right.
That's how it's gonna front.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Can you show the aerial?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? All right. No public comment. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. 7-0. Churchwell Road Addition, Section 1. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a final plat, Churchwell Road Addition, and 3 variances from the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance. 1, a variance from Section 10.3A2 to maintain a minimum pavement width of 14 feet in lieu of 30 feet for Churchwell Road, a rural local road. 2, a variance from Section 93A5A 3, to allow for no curbing on Churchwell Road, and 3, a variance from Chapter 9.5 that would require a sidewalk along Churchwell Road for public safety, being 3 acres located at 1301 Churchwell Road.
Morning, Planning Commission. Jeff Fisher, Senior Planner with the City of St. Angelo. So the Churchwell Addition, Section 1, all of this area here is one lot. The applicant is intending to plot into 2 lots. Lot 2, in order to construct a new dwelling on Lot 2. There's an existing dwelling on Lot 1. This property is also in the ETJ, and as of right now, Churchwell Road acts as a road. It's being county maintained, so it's essentially a de facto road, and acts also as a private easement. So as part of this plat, in order to make this officially a public road, the applicant will dedicate 30 feet off the front of this property. Here, 3 variances are requested. 1 from the paving width. It's a rural local road, and so it needs to be 30 feet wide. 2 from any curbing, being out in the ETJ, and 3 from sidewalks. So staff's rationale is to approve all of the variances as well as the plat based on the following. 14 of the 15 feet, as you know, if the street width has to be 30 feet wide, the developer on one side of the street only has to pave their incremental half. So it happens to be that 14 of the 15 feet have already been paved. So essentially, it's really a 1-foot variance. Now, staff believes that's appropriate. They've also put in a turnaround easement supported by the volunteer fire department in that area. 2, we believe that the uniqueness test has been met. The majority of paving has already been completed along Churchwell Road. The additional 1 foot would not benefit anyone or improve any traffic flow. 3, we believe that a hardship would be created. The applicant, and I believe it's about 300 feet, they would have to pave that extra 1 foot in front of those 2 properties, so that would be a hardship. And 4, we don't believe it would vary any other subdivision provisions. Staff recommendation is to approve the Churchwell Road Addition Section 1 final plat, approve the variance from Section 103A2 to maintain the minimum pavement width of 14 feet in lieu of the required 30 feet for Churchwell Road, a rural local street, approve the variance from Section 93A5A3 to allow no curbing, and finally approve the variance from Chapter 9.5 that would require a sidewalk for public safety. Any questions or comments? These are the three conditions of approval.
Okay. Anyone have questions for Mr. Fisher? All right. Do we have any public comment? Good morning. If you'd please state your name.
My name is Tony Rojo. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Fisher and everyone in the city's departments that have been very gracious to me. And I just wanted to reiterate what you've already received in the letter, just that this is not for business. I'm not trying to create a subdivision to make money off of. This is a widow and her children that I'm trying to help out. She's like family to me, and her husband was as well. And this is all I am trying to do at this point is take care of a widow and her kids. I'm not going to make any money off of it, and I don't believe that what I'm asking for is going to hurt anyone in any way. So hopefully, the city has seen what I'm trying to do in here, and hopefully you do as well. And that was it. Do y'all have any questions for me? Thank you.
Questions? Thanks, Tony. Okay.
Make a motion to
We have a
approve
motion.
as presented.
Here we go. All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as the city staff has recommended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, 7-0. Next item, 4th replat of Block 2 Country Club Acres Subdivision. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of the 4th replat of Block 2 Country Club Acres Subdivision and 3 variances from the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance. 1, a variance from Section 103A2 to maintain a minimum pavement width of 28 feet in lieu of 50 feet for Ben Ficklin Road, an urban collector road. 2, variance from Section 93A5A3 to allow no curbing on Ben Ficklin Road. And 3, a variance from Chapter 9.5 that would require a sidewalk for public safety along Ben Ficklin Road, being 2 acres west of Ben Ficklin Road and south of Becker Lane. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you again. This is the 4th replat of Block 2 Country Club Acres Subdivision. Some of you may have been here in late 2015 when the 3rd replat was brought forward, and you all had approved that with the variances at the time. This entire subdivision extends back, I think, roughly another 400 feet. And there's originally it was 1 lot. It was replatted into 3 lots, and now the applicant wants to essentially replat Lot 1, create a Lot 1 F and 1E out of the front lot. So it'll be basically 1 lot now into 2. All lots comply with the ranch and estate zoning, R&E. The variance is requested today, as they were in 2015, from the paving width on Ben Ficklin Road, Collector Road, from variance from any curbing, and a variance from any sidewalks. So staff's rationale is to deny the variances for road width and curbs, but to approve the variance from the sidewalk. So we'll go quickly through the rationale for the denial for the road width and curbs. Consistent with our previous denial in 2015, planning and engineering both agree. Ben Ficklin serves as 2 purposes. It's a collector road that goes from West Loop 306 down to Country Club. It also, that portion of Ben Ficklin on that side is used as a deacceleration lane right now and a transition lane. So it's very pivotal. That as more plats get approved in that area, staff believes that traffic will continue to increase, and having that extra road width is important. We don't believe there's any uniqueness here to warrant a variance. There is additional room to add another 11 feet of pavement on that side. That best of our knowledge, before any hydro poles or anything else, there's adequate space. As mentioned, Ben Ficklin acts as a collector to those two pivotal points. We don't believe there's any hardship due to any physical surroundings. Widening road or installing the header curb will improve traffic safety. I just want to clarify that staff is only asking for a header curb, not a full curb, given this area is a little bit more rural, so it'll be a little less expense there. And finally, we believe that maintaining the paving width as it is could increase accidents there, given all that traffic coming down and attempting to turn onto Becker Lane. Staff is supporting approval of the sidewalk variance, though, given that it's located in an area without a high volume of foot traffic. There'd be additional cost to the developer if a sidewalk was required, which again is not a automatic variance just because there's a financial hardship. But in this case, we don't believe there'd be a public benefit, just given that the low foot traffic in the area. So we are supporting the sidewalk. Staff recommendation is to approve the 4-3 plat of Block 2 Country Club Acres subdivision. Approve the variance from Chapter 9.5 that would require a sidewalk for public safety, but deny the variance from Section 10.3A2 to maintain a minimum pavement width of 28 feet in lieu of the required 50 feet for Ben Ficklin Road and Urban Collector Street, and deny the variance from Section 9.3A53 to allow no curbing and require a header curb. Any questions or comments?
Could you go back to the aerial for this, please? So can you please just kind of outline what you're proposing they do on this lot?
Yes, sir. So what we're suggesting, or what we're recommending, is that they essentially, the pavement of Ben Ficklin goes like this, and there's another 11 feet on their incremental half. So we're basically asking them to pave right in here with a header curb.
Okay, is it from the south side of Becker Lane through their lot? It's not, we're not going across Becker Lane, are we?
Correct, and let me clarify that too. So that's a good question. In 2015, they created a situation where all of the lots were fronting onto Becker Lane, which is a private street and wasn't allowed. We had recommended denial. The Planning Commission overturned. In this case, in order to avoid that situation again, Lot 1E, the second lot here, will have a flag configuration. And so it will meet the test of the subdivision ordinance to have direct and abutting access. So both lots will front onto Ben Ficklin, so there's no worry about using Becker Lane as a secondary access. They can do that because there's already an access easement. So the variance here is the part that fronts onto Ben Ficklin. So it's Ben Ficklin that's deficient in width and doesn't have a curb right now.
Sir, what essentially staff is recommending is for that widening to occur, is for there to be a decel lane because of the number of lots that will.
A deceleration?
An XL lane, acceleration lane.
An acceleration lane.
Transportation, it's not my forte. So that was the purpose for the extra lane.
Okay. And you're also requesting a curb, is that
Just
correct?
a header curb.
Or header
yes, sir.
curb. Are there other parts of Ben Ficklin Road that have header curbs?
I think engineering is here to answer if you have any further questions on that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
Is
like
there
to.
someone from engineering that could speak on that, please?
Morning, Andy Vaselio, Assistant City Engineer.
Morning,
To
Andy.
give a little bit of rationale and some of the questions that come up, essentially what we have is a 28-foot wide paving lane, which minor collector should have a 50-foot. It's in city limits. And so what the question about the header curb, it's just basically a curb that would be flush with the edge of the asphalt. And what it'll do is it'll help prevent flaking or any deterioration. With regard to any other header curbs, in that general area, I know there's some curb and gutter in that area, but I don't think on Ben Ficklin, but I don't know 100% for sure.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions?
Anyone have any other questions for Andy? Nope.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone have more questions for Jeff, or why don't we open it up for public comment? Please state your name.
I'm Ted Logan. I'd like to thank you all for seeing us. I thank the planning department for approval of this subdivision. But I do object to the paving requirements on Ben Ficklin. The paving width was approved at 28 feet in the third replat of lots B, C, and D. All I'm basically doing is dividing D in half, E and F. This will not cause any greater burden than the previous division of these plats.
When was that approved, Tad?
That was done, it was finally recorded in 17. It was approved in 15, but not followed through on. To me, the subdivision ordinance is in place to help promote future development of public property and make it safer and more appealing to the public. The spirit of this ordinance is to require large subdivisions to meet the current ordinance to improve the public property being developed, but this requirement puts a huge or large burden on small subdivisions, say under 3 properties. To make 2 acres divided into 2 1-acre tracts comply with this ordinance is unreasonable. It will deter future development of small subdivisions, and I'm doing nothing to further non-compliance of the current ordinance for 1 lot. It's apparent to me in the spirit of non-compliance of a subdivision, this ordinance is not a reasonable burden to put on a small subdivision. The cost of this pavement, 132 feet by 11, would cost approximately $20,000. This is a large burden to put on the vision of a single property. Also, there are safety issues in this 11 feet. Currently, we have a stop sign, an intersection sign, and a utility pole 3 feet off this, where we'll be in this 11 feet.
Tad, I think you can touch on that screen. Can you show us where those signs are located? Yeah, if you don't mind.
I'm not sure. I might have to do this with a pencil. Okay, the stop sign's actually 5 feet off Ben Ficklin, which is fine in its present location, because you can see down here to the north.
Tad, can you drag the mic over kind of closer to where you are?
Yes.
Thank you.
The stop sign as it presently is sitting 5 feet off the 28-foot pavement is fine. But what happens if you move this stop sign back to the west, which you'll have to do because we're at 11 feet, it's got to be inside that. We've got to allow for a 5 to 6 foot turning radius. That's what they're wanting. They're wanting more accessibility onto Ben Ficklin. Okay, when you do that, you're moving the stop sign back basically another 12 feet. When you do that, that car is sitting back so far here that it can really not see the traffic coming from the north. Because this traffic is moving generally at about 40 miles an hour on the street. So we pick up a hazard there that I'm not sure, I don't see how it's benefiting anything. It's going to make a safety issue present. And also the intersection sign is only sitting at 8 feet, right here in the middle of the 11-foot area. Currently, it is visible fine from the north. If you move it another 5 feet back, you won't be able to see it at all. It will totally be blocked by the tree and utility lines. And the utility pole itself is sitting 15 feet off the 28-foot road as it is. If we take this 11 feet back, then we've got this utility pole that's carrying a lot of voltage 4 feet off the pavement. I think that's increasing a hazard. And nearly all the traffic coming off Becker Lane, people aren't going to the country club, they're going to town. Nearly everybody turning off Becker Lane onto Ben Ficklin are going to the north. So basically all we're doing in this 11 feet is creating a piece of pavement that's going to be seldomly used for any ingress and egress onto Ben Ficklin, and it's also going to be harder for people to see if we add that width. I just think this would be a extreme burden to put on a single property division, and I feel like I'd appreciate y'all's consideration for this. Is there any questions?
So Tad, you're talking about the traffic that's going north.
Toward the loop.
It's going to turn left off of Becker Lane onto Ben Ficklin Road, right?
Correct.
So if you set the stop sign back another 12 feet, we're not making improvements on the other side of Becker Lane, correct?
Right.
You don't own that land. So is there shrubs or is there something that blocks your vision?
Well, we've got a tree line, a fence line to the north that goes all the way across that other subdivision.
So if you pull up to the stop sign where they're proposing you put it, you can't see.
You're virtually
down the road.
These people have gotten so far back on Becker Lane here at that point that they can't see traffic coming up from the loop up there.
Right.
Because it is a curve. And because I sat out there and looked at it, and basically these cars are coming at about 40 and 45. If you're having to pull, these people are going to pull out nearly another 5 or 6 feet anyway, and they're going to be in the road virtually,
right,
trying to see around this corner. So I think there definitely is a safety factor. And
do we have an aerial that shows this road?
I can pass one out right now.
I did some Google Maps. They didn't enlarge very well, but let me see if I can pull one of those up for you.
Yep, this will work.
Okay.
Is there a hill just north of the intersection at Becker? Or can you see all the way down to that turn?
You can barely see to the turn. It's not. I'd say there's a slight incline. It's not necessarily a hill,
Okay.
but see what we've got there.
Yep. This is helpful.
If you
Right. You got that line of trees right there. Yep.
makes it pretty tough, and then of course this is basically that's pretty much showing the same thing if we reposition it.
All right, while these are going around, does anyone have any more questions for Tad?
Wish I could have made those a little larger. It was just
It's
wouldn't let
helpful.
me expand upon them.
It's going to take us a couple of minutes to distribute
fine.
them
I
around up
understand.
here, but I think it's helpful. I do have another question for Andy with engineering, if he's got a second. Thank you, Tad. Does the city have any plans to widen Ben Ficklin Road in the near future?
Well, we have a 10-year CIP, and we're about 3 years into it. And as of right now, it is not on our current 10-year CIP. So
It's not on the
It
10-year?
is not on a 10-year CIP. Now, whether it would be in the next one, we're still speculative at this point.
That's exactly right. Okay.
Any additional questions?
No, sir. Thank you. Oh, okay. Any more public comment? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you please state your name.
Roger Ellison. This is our home. This is my mother-in-law's home. She just passed away, so my wife and her brothers own this home. I also represent the Ben Ficklin Partnership, so I have a unique interest in this property. And I'm in favor of the variances that Tad has requested. To add along this road creates a problem in that it widens the road right here, and some fool is going to use it who is driving south toward the country club.
Right.
And when they do and get to this point right here where the road narrows again, we've got a problem. We're going to have a wreck. If we were to sidestep, there is no curbing from Loop 306 all the way past San Angelo Country Club. So there is no curbing anywhere.
Okay.
The gentleman on my right here referred to lots of traffic coming down Becker. I believe there are 5 houses on the right and 1 on the left. There's not a lot of traffic going down. And the addition of 2 homes here and here is not going to create much more traffic. As Tad has mentioned, if this lane were in place and I were coming out of Becker to take a left, I can't really see what oncoming traffic is. And if that lane is there, I'm repeating myself, but when I get back here, there's a problem in that the road narrows all of a sudden. And the gentleman from engineering said there are no plans within the next 10 years to widen that.
Right.
Anyway, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Anyone else have questions? We have a motion.
I would like to say that I agree with the variances that Mr. Logan is requesting.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the replat subject to the variances Mr. Logan is requesting.
Okay, so instead of denying variance from 103A2, we would approve it. And instead of denying the variance from section 93A5A3, we would approve that as well.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, that's 7-0. All right, next item, related comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. The City Council has final authority for approval of comprehensive plan amendments and rezones. City of San Angelo, Ayers, CP 18-03, City of San Angelo, public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of an amendment to the comprehensive plan changing the future land use designation from industrial to commercial, being 5 acres located at 1619 Roosevelt Street. Hillary.
Good morning, Hillary Bucher again. We are looking to change the future land use of this property as well as the zoning with this case. So we're looking to go from industrial to commercial on the future land use and from RS1 to CG zoning. It's about 5 acres, the southeast corner of Roosevelt and South Bell Street. So if you'll look right here, it would be Bell. Kind of gives you an idea. SMD number 1, Lucy Gonzalez, sorry, that's probably number 4, and Fort Concho East neighborhood. So as you can see, this is directly adjacent to commercial future land use, so we believe extending it to this property is acceptable. And then the RS1 zoning, this area has never developed residential, so we're looking to do general commercial, which is directly adjacent here, and then you have CGCH and CN. So this is the front of the property along Roosevelt, gives you some idea of just the coverage of this area. And then the front of the property along St. Anne. So the property actually extends down to St. Anne Street. So we believe that the CG is compatible with the proposed future commercial flu. The land is consistent with the CG zoning. That area has mixed uses, but mostly commercial along South Bell. The anticipated residential never developed. We believe there's limited anticipated negative effects on the environment. We don't see a demonstrated need for residential in that direct area, and we already have an existing commercial development pattern along South Bell. We mailed out 7 notices on March 27th and received 0 in favor and 0 in opposition. So this property and this property are actually owned by the City of San Angelo as well, those large pieces. Staff is recommending approval of the comprehensive plan amendment, changing the future land use from industrial to commercial, and approval of the rezoning from RS1 to general commercial zoning. Does anyone have any questions? We need 2 different motions. Yes, sir.
We have, okay. So I need to open it for public comment. Have any public comment?
Harry Thomas, just want to make a comment. This is really an SMD4. It's not an SMD1, just for clarification. Everybody needs to understand that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to need 2 motions here. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make the first. Move to approve the plan amendment changing from industrial to commercial.
The future land use? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We need a motion for the rezoning.
Motion to approve the zoning from single family to general commercial.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
7-0. Z18-08, Ayers. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a rezoning from the single-family residential RS1 zoning district to general commercial CG zoning district, being 5 acres located at 1619 Roosevelt Street. Mr. Fisher.
Chair, Stribling, I believe that was the previous
That was the
case.
second
Is that
one.
both? Okay.
That's all right.
Perfect. So the next, City of San Angelo, Glen Park Apartments LP, CP 18-04, City of San Angelo. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of an amendment to the comprehensive plan, changing the future land use designation from industrial to neighborhood center, being 5 acres located at 4001 Chadburn Street.
Jeff Fisher again. This, as with Hillary's case, this is a consolidation of 2 cases, so there'll be 2 motions for the same property. Comprehensive Plan Amendment 1804 and rezoning 1806, City of San Angelo, and Glen Park Apartments, LP. So the future land use right now is industrial. The applicant had received endorsement from the City of San Angelo to move forward with a tax credit application to the state for apartments on this property. And so that's what the zone change essentially before, although it could allow a multitude of different uses as well as apartments in the RM1. Could be single family or two family as well. But that's the intent as of today. 5-acre property at the southeast corner of Cristobal Road and Chadburn, SMD number 1, Tommy Hebert, in the Glenmore neighborhood. So the future land use today is industrial. City's proposing to change that to neighborhood center to fit with the proposed apartment complex and the underlying RM1 zoning. And the zoning right now is light manufacturing, so that, as proposed, would change to RM1 to allow the apartments. These are the photos looking north. As you go further east and further south, it becomes more industrial in nature, but as you get further to that intersection, it's a lot more commercial or housing in nature. And so we believe this is a suitable property for what the applicant intends to do. There's a gas station at the northeast corner. South, there's a construction office. As you go west, there's also a mobile home park already in here, so there is multifamily housing or higher density housing already. And this is looking east along Chadburn. So the applicant's proposal, and again, RM1 could allow a multitude of uses. This is just intended as of today. 4 buildings, 76,300 roughly square feet. It'd be 60 multifamily units. 36 would be 2-bedroom, and 24 would be 3-bedroom. The applicant has provided us with a site concept plan and some building elevations just to give you an idea of what would happen. Separate from the zone change, if this goes through, given the size of the proposal, more than 25,000 square feet, they will need an urban design review. So we'll be able to look at things like fencing, landscaping, sidewalks at that point, and also a subdivision plat. So those two would come later. So these are the sample elevations. Some of you may be familiar with Kirby Park up on Martin Luther King and 29th. The design and the concept is very similar to that building, which is now almost completed. Staff is recommending approval of both cases today, the comp plan and the rezoning, based on the following. So changing the neighborhood center would be consistent with rezoning to RM1 for multifamily apartments. At the northwest corner of that intersection where the mobile home park is, that future land use is also neighborhood center, so that would just match. Consistent with the zoning ordinance, the proposed development complies with all of the RM1 standards. Their concept plan provided they're short about 3 parking spaces, but they can work that out. They've got a 5-acre property, so they can deal with that at the permit stage. It's compatible with the surrounding area. It's very close to Goodfellow Air Force Base, several commercial uses around in the area, so anybody that's employed with the military or employed in some of those commercial construction offices could look at housing in this area as well. Change conditions. The ML zoning on that corner hasn't developed that way. It's been sitting vacant for some time. So we believe that the RM1 zoning is more appropriate, best use of that land, and consistent with the military base housing in the area and the mobile home park, some of those subdivisions to the north. There's already a presence of housing. No anticipated effects on the natural environment. Grading and drainage would be assessed through the building permit review and, of course, through the subdivision when they hit that stage. Community need, we believe, given the close proximity to other housing and the military base, there is a potential for and a demand for more multifamily in this area. Finally, development patterns shouldn't change too much. The applicant, as I mentioned, will need to plat the property. It's located along 2 major arterial roads. Chadburn gets you right into downtown. Cristobal continues the other way. Again, very close to the base, very close to commercial activities already. 7 notifications were mailed out. We have not received any responses as to date. Staff recommendation is to approve the comp plan amendment, changing the future land use of the northwest 5 acres of the subject property from industrial to neighborhood center, and approving the rezoning of the northwest 5 acres from the light manufacturing ML zoning district to the low-rise multifamily residential RM1 zoning district. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for Mr. Fisher? No? Any public comment? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Paul Holden. I represent the owner-developer of this property, and just wanted to let you know that we're very excited to be back in San Angelo again this year with another property. If you have any question for me, I'll be happy to answer.
Anyone have questions for Mr. Holden? No? Thank you, sir. Okay.
I make a motion that we change the comprehensive plan from industrial to neighborhood center.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Smith. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None? 7-0. All right, we have another motion that needs to be made on the rezone.
Make a motion to rezone from light manufacturing to RM1 low-rise multifamily residential.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. 7-0. Rezonings. City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings. Z18-09A and Z18-09B, Sepulveda and Perez. City of San Angelo, public hearing and consideration of request for approval of 1, a rezoning from the general commercial, heavy commercial zoning district to the single-family residential zoning district on 409 West 34th Street, being 1.01 acres located at 409 West 34th Street. 2, a rezoning from the general commercial, heavy commercial zoning district to the single-family residential zoning district to the single-family residential zoning district, being 1.01 acres located at 405 West 34th Street. And 3, a rezoning from general commercial, heavy commercial zoning district and the single-family residential zoning district to the single-family residential zoning district, being 1.01 acres located at 401 West 34th Street. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you again, Chair Stribling. So this case is a zone change for these two properties here by the applicant, and the city has initiated a cleanup essentially of this third property. These two properties to the east have part CG, CH, and part RS1. So the applicant intends to build 2 new homes on the left and the center properties, and so the zone change essentially would remove all the CG/CH from all of the properties and go to RS1. So the one immediately to the west is already all CG/CH. That'll go to RS1. The other 2 are dual. So at the end of the day, you're going to see RS1 across the board. Each property is 1.01 acres each, so collectively 3.03 acres. Southwest corner of Sprague Street and West 34th in San Angelo, SMD number 2, Tom Thompson in the Riverside neighborhood. The long-term plan for this area is already neighborhood, the future land use. So this will give you a better idea of what's happened here. Prior to 2000, probably since the 50s actually, when we researched our maps, it used to be C2 and it became CG/CH. 500 feet east of Lake Road was all CG/CH. Most of it never developed that way, with the exception of a Hirschfield property and another commercial property down here. All of it's housing today, so we believe it makes sense to rezone to RS1. This is looking north at the existing properties. So 405 already has a structure on it. 401 has a house. So rationale for approval is as follows. The neighborhood future land use supports residential housing. It's consistent with the zoning ordinance. All of the lots are 100 feet wide and have way more than enough depth, so it's going to meet the RS1 zoning. Properties are surrounded by residential housing in all directions. The residential structures have existed on these properties since the 1960s, so again, nothing's going to change there. No anticipated effects on the natural environment. We believe there's a community need given that over time the neighborhood has maintained and continues to be residential in nature. The properties have already been platted, and they're in close proximity to commercial services, so we don't see any anticipated change in development patterns. 17 notifications were mailed out, and we did not receive any responses. So staff recommendation is to approve a rezoning from the general commercial, heavy commercial CG/CH zoning district to the single-family residence RS1 zoning district on all 3 properties. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for Mr. Fisher? All right, do we have any public comment? Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Rick Sepulveda, owner of the property. Just wanted to say thank you for your consideration in changing this. I do plan to build 2 new starter homes on these properties, and there are new homes across the street that were built. There's one catty corner that was built, so I think it'll definitely help the neighborhood, as the property has been vacant for about 6 years. We plan to tear it down and then, again, go from there.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. Any other public comment? There being none, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Do we need 3 motions or, okay, one for all of it? Okay.
We're going to make one motion for all 3 of these properties, correct? So we have a motion and a second to approve the rezoning. Let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. 7-0. Item 4, conditional uses. Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to City Council. A CU 18-06, Vallis. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a conditional use to allow for household living in the general commercial, heavy commercial zoning district, being 0.47 acres located at 2728 Martin Luther King Drive. Hillary.
Okay, Hillary Bucher again. We're moving on to CU 1806. It's a conditional use to allow for household living on 0.47 acres. It's located at the southeast corner of MLK Drive and West 28th Street. So to kind of give you a frame of reference, this up here would be 29th. SMD number 4, Lucy Gonzalez, in the Reagan neighborhood. So the current future land use is commercial in that area, but this was the project Jeff referenced, Kirby Park, so there are some residential as well as behind it. And the current zoning is CGCH. Excuse me. These photos look at the front of the home. The home already exists today, the side of the house. These are adjacent residential south on MLK, and then, as I said, Kirby Park, kind of catty corner. They are proposing I believe it's a carport and some other additions, so they just need to legalize their household living in the CGCH. Staff's recommending approval. The existing home has been there since approximately 1944 per the appraisal district records. Household living is allowed with a conditional use in the commercial zoning districts, and that entire block right there on MLK is residential. There could be some temporary effects to the natural environment due to the construction, but no long-term effects, as it is an established neighborhood, and the area is still developing with residential capacity with the adjacent developments. 11 notices were mailed out, and 0 have been received in favor or opposition. So staff's recommendation is to approve a conditional use to allow for household living in the CGCH zoning district, subject to 2 conditions of approval. Number 1, the applicant shall obtain building permits from the Permits and Inspections Division as needed, and household living shall only be limited to 1 single-family residence on the property. Does anyone have any questions?
No questions? All right, do we have any public comment? Morning.
My name is Alex Valles. I'm the owner of the land. And thank you for your time and consideration for the approval of our deal. We've lived in there since 1987. We've done several additions and fixes to the house, so this would be one more that could finally get done to our house so we can have a carport inside. We do have a small garage, but we need a carport for protection. So thank you for your consideration and your time.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher, also for all that you've done for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. So Hillary, the reason they've requested the conditional use is because they're adding improvements?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. They want to make improvements to the home, and to do that, to get a building permit, they need the conditional use to allow the household living.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, 7-0. CU 1807, Lighthouse, public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a conditional use to allow for retail sales and service in the light manufacturing zoning district being .406 acres located at 1953 Austin Street. Hillary.
Okay, the next one we're going to move on to is CU 1807 for Lighthouse. This is a conditional use for retail sales and service on .406 acres. This is at the northwest corner of Lighthouse Way in Austin, so close to the corners of Austin and Knickerbocker, SMD number 5, Lane Carter, ASU, College Hills neighborhood. The current future land use for this project is commercial, and the current zoning is light manufacturing. This is just kind of an aerial photograph. You can see the cemetery directly adjacent, and then Dakota Coffee to the right. Their Lighthouse for the Blind also has another building in this bottom corner. So this is the space they're looking to add the retail component. So these were the proposed plans. This front would be the storefront for them. They have some interior stuff they're looking at doing. Parking was something we looked at, and we're trying to work out with them. These currently back out onto Austin, which would not be allowed today. So we're working with them, and those are two of the conditions of approval is for the alternative parking plan. So these photos show the front of the property along Austin Street. If any of you know this area, the bike shop is to the south. It's kind of an industrial-looking building, but they've made a lot of improvements to the front to make it look more inviting and more retail-friendly. So the rationale for approval is the building will continue to function the same as surrounding properties. The land is consistent with the ML zoning with the conditional use. That area is a lot of mixed uses, but mostly commercial. We don't see any anticipated negative effects on the environment. The retail provides jobs and others retail for our location and existing commercial development along Austin Street. We mailed out 6 notices, and we received 1 in favor and 0 in opposition. So staff's recommendation is for approval of a conditional use to allow retail sales and services in the light manufacturing zoning district. Does anyone have any, let me get, these are subject to, I'm sorry, this was in the staff report. They are subject to 2 conditions of approval. The applicant shall work with the Building and Inspections Department to ensure the retail space meets the requirements, and the applicant shall meet all applicable parking standards as specified in the approved alternative parking plan per section 511E of the zoning ordinance, which would be to provide staff an unobstructed access easement for parking located at 915 Lighthouse and provide 2 on-site parking spaces at 1953 Austin, with 1 being handicap accessible. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I just, so when I went there yesterday, how was the parking discussion? I mean, although I don't agree with not being able to back out onto Austin Street, that's here nor there.
Yes, sir.
But, I mean, when you consider staff and then, you know, the owner or whomever is also going to be, I mean, what is the conversation like?
So they submitted an alternative parking plan, and I'd have to look at it to get the exact numbers, but approximately 50% of their staff is legally blind, and so they take alternative forms of transportation to get there. So they suggested parking. They also looked at local retailers that's office supply retailers in town, looked at their peak flows during times. They estimate per square footage they'll have at a maximum 2 people there at a time, and they have some frontage. Let me go back 1 slide. So this is pretty much the property line. So it looks to be that they would have 2 here. If not, they could probably add 1 in this area. We didn't want to not have any parking, but again, we wanted to meet the requirements. So we proposed that they add the parking that was acceptable for this building, and then like I said, they have an adjacent warehouse that's back here, and that already has existing parking spaces that they don't utilize fully because of the abilities of their staff. And the applicant is here as well to talk a little bit about what they do, if you have any
So
questions.
just to be clear, there are not going to be stringent parking requirements because of the use. So you don't see any problem working with them to resolve what's currently an unresolved matter on the parking?
Yes, no, they've actually, he's having a survey done to be able to put the 2 spots in that are completely compliant. Today in our zoning ordinance, 2 spots can be backing out onto a right-of-way. So they can have 2 in the front if they still fit, which we're doing the survey to ensure. And then again, they could possibly have 1 for maybe a staff person or something to that effect in the fenced-in area.
Perfect.
So I think they've worked really well with us, and we've kind of come up with a compromise, as well as their adjacent building already having existing parking, so.
Are they selling office supplies out of
Yes,
there?
sir,
Is that what their intent is?
that's my understanding, and they're here as well.
Yeah, let's open it up for public comment. Does anyone have any comments? Good morning.
Josh Glaze with West Texas Lighthouse for the Blind.
Morning, Josh.
Just in what we're doing is we have an office supply store called Lighthouse Office Supply, and the reason why we're opening it up is to create jobs for people who are blind. We're part of West Texas Lighthouse for the Blind, and that's our mission, is to create jobs for people who are blind. We've been around since 1963, so. Again, we've been working with the city really closely on this, and actually today we're kind of wrapping up all of our plans, our alternative parking plan. I think we'll be able to get that submitted today in terms of the additional things we need to take care of. So, are there any questions about what we're trying to do?
I don't think so.
I have a question. In the retail space, how much parking would y'all have normally required?
Is this Hillary's question?
Yes, this would be for Hillary.
Yes, sir. So in a retail space, we look at, I believe it's 1 per 300. I can, hold on one second. So the parking that we originally came out with was about 11 to 12 spaces, depending on how they laid out the whole area.
And they have how many now do you think they'll have?
We're proposing to add 2 at this point, to require 2. They might be able to have a 3rd. That's why we're waiting for the survey.
I personally don't think, and even though it's somewhat of a nonprofit, they're still going into competition with people, businesses, other businesses that have to play by the stringent rules set by the city, state, and federal government. And I don't think they should be treated any differently.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to provide one clarification. I think Hillary did a great job presenting. Just one clarification. So they're required to put in, as part of this alternative parking arrangement that John will be looking at and what you have as a condition of approval, it's not just the 2 parking stalls that they'll be installing immediately in front of where the retail store will be. The alternative plan also has alternatives to providing the parking. So they'll be using some of the existing parking that they have on the site or adjacent to the site to meet some of those parking needs. So it's not that just we're waiving everything. They're going to be using or sharing some of the parking. And so it's in cases like this, so I'm going to use an example that John likes to use a lot, which I think is a really great example, the bike shop. So if you have a bike shop, most of your customers theoretically are going to come to this bike shop on bicycles. There's no need to have all of the parking that would be required necessarily for retail sales. In this case, the nature of the individuals who will be working on the site aren't going to be utilizing traditional modes of transportation. So in this case, we can use some of that existing parking to meet some of their needs. Is it going to wipe away all the requirements? Absolutely not. But they are going to be utilizing some of the stalls that they already have to meet the parking needs that they have, and they're going to be installing some right in front of the retail to meet some of those needs as well.
Would we do it for Office Depot?
If Office Depot had come to the planning department and said, look, based on our parking calculations and our parking study that here we have a document that shows this is the amount of parking that we need based on the amount of customers, or the nature of the customers that we have. Our director would have the ability to do the exact same thing, review an alternative parking situation, and if he feels that the information that he's being given is correct, he would sign off on that alternative parking arrangement. So we try to tailor it based on the applicant and the nature of the business that comes before us on a case-by-case basis.
The alternative parking plan is available in our ordinance for anyone who submits, I mean, if they cannot meet it.
And I can't think off the top of my head, but I know that we've had other examples where we've allowed parking off-site. One is a church I can think of. Normally, your required parking has to be on-site, but if it's within some distance of your facility, we have used the alternative to allow for that parking to be off-site. So they're, as Rebecca said, they're meeting some of the requirement with these spaces over in this area. But again, and I think the short answer is we would look at something like that for Office Depot as well. The difference here is the information they provided on their employees, that a significant portion of them don't drive. And so that probably got them more of a reduction than we would have given Office Depot based on that.
All right, do we have any more questions?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the city staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
6-1. CU 18-08, Lopez. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a conditional use to allow for household living in the heavy commercial zoning district being .5174 acres located at 2009 Old Ballinger Highway.
Before you get started, I was given a notification for this CU 18-08 Lopez. Do I have a conflict of interest? Because I own property.
You own property within the notification area, then yes, we would typically recommend that you not take part in this item.
Okay. Do I need to step outside?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Let's continue.
Okay. CU 1808 Lopez, as Travis mentioned, it's a conditional use for household living on .5174 acres. It's approximately half a mile northeast of the intersection of Old Ballinger Highway and Bell Street, SMD number 4, Lucy Gonzalez, and the Paul Ann neighborhood. The future land use of this area is commercial, and the current zoning is heavy manufacturing. So this is some photos of the area. You can see adjacent homes, and then this I believe is an old propane business that's currently there. So they would like to add a new garage and concrete approach to this parking to their area. So that's why they're applying for this conditional use to allow household living, is to pull the building permit for those new improvements, similar to the conditional use we heard previously. So this is the front of the property along Old Ballinger Highway. They currently have a carport back there in the home. And then this is looking down Old Ballinger Highway both ways. The property will continue to function the same as most of the surrounding properties. The proposed land use is consistent with the zoning ordinance with the conditional use. There are mixed uses along Old Ballinger Highway, but several homes currently exist. We don't see any anticipated effects on the natural environment. And the property has functioned in its current use since 1959, and there are existing residential dwellings as well on Old Ballinger Highway. 7 notices were mailed on March 27th. I have received 0 in favor and 0 in opposition. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use to allow for household living in the heavy manufacturing zoning district. 1 second, I want to verify. There are conditions of approval. I'm so sorry, I don't know why these weren't. The applicant shall obtain building permits from the Permits and Inspections Division as needed, and household living shall be limited to 1 single-family residence. Does anyone have any conditions or questions?
Any questions for Hillary? No? Okay, do we have any public comment? No public comment. All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the city staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wait for Mr. Brooks to come back in. Text amendments. City Council has final authority for approval of text amendments. Public hearing and consideration of a text amendment to Chapter 12, Exhibit A, zoning ordinance redesigning Sections 309 through 317 as Sections 310 through 318, establishing a new Section 309 entitled River Corridor District, Downtown District, and Cultural District Overlay Zones with new boundary maps and a new application process and standards in these districts, and repealing Article 12.06 River Corridor Development Ordinance and the Old Town District Z10-14 and boundary map. Hillary.
Okay, we are moving on to the updated river corridor is what we're kind of explaining it as. So the old river corridor on this map, you can kind of see as a light blue shaded area. So you can see some areas up here. There was a little bit of confusion why you were giving river corridor approval in downtown. So staff looked at adding different districts. Right now, they'll currently all report to the design requirements for the river corridor, but this would allow us 3 distinct districts, and our hope is that someday each of these districts will have very specific requirements. So the current river corridor map would go away, and then we're proposing the 3 new districts. So the first one would be the river corridor. We looked at properties that were directly adjacent or visible from the river. So we cut out some significant areas of residential. You can see kind of in this area, homes that were far enough away from the river you wouldn't even be able to see them. We've added some properties that were city-owned and or parkland, and we've gone from the eastern boundary to the western boundary on the river corridor. The downtown map, as you can see, the light blue was the old river corridor. The downtown map really encompasses the future land use area of downtown. So right now, again, this would report to the design standards or the design guidelines for the river corridor, but we're hoping one day to have distinct but similar characteristics. So the downtown, the river, and what we're proposing as the cultural will all kind of flow together but be really unique, cool areas. So the cultural district, you can see here outlined in the blue, the old river corridor was up to the north. A lot of this area, and the reason we looked at protecting it was the fort. So the fort takes up a large portion, as well as the city parks and buildings and the old train depot. There's a lot of new kind of artist studios popping up in this area and a lot of development. So really we believe a happening place here in the near future. I'll let Jeff go through the summary of changes. Does anyone have any questions on the maps? Okay.
So we just wanted to quickly cover some of the proposed changes in this ordinance, just so you're clear. Hillary explained some of the map changes that we're doing as well, and this is the text portion. So we had presented this to the Design and Historic Review Commission earlier this year. They had given us some feedback as well. So what you're seeing now is essentially a consolidated version of the changes. So in addition to the maps being repealed and creating 3 new district maps, we also looked at some of the changes in what type of approvals were required, what could be approved by the planning director administratively, and what other changes would have to go to the Design and Historic Review Commission. The fundamental change is a new definition of construction. It used to be limited to just remodeling of an existing structure or new construction. We've added more specific language, restoration, rehabilitation, and re-roofing. The other significant change is before, you would only have to come before planning or the Design and Historic Review Commission if you needed a building permit, the way the ordinance was written. So somebody could come in and paint their building with purple polka dots only and be able to do that without an approval. Someone else could come in and want to do purple polka dots in addition to new construction, and that would trigger a review of everything. So what we're doing in the changes, if you're adding any exterior painting, if you're adding certain types of landscaping, walls and fences above 7 feet that need a permit, all of that will now have to be reviewed as well to essentially to have consistency in those corridors. So administrative approvals today are construction under 1,200 square feet. DHRC board had provided us with some suggestions, so we're bringing forward the changes. Any construction, any new construction or additions at all would come to the DHRC. So things under 1,200 would no longer be reviewed by the planning director. That's one significant change. However, the planning director would still have certain powers. So we mentioned or review exterior painting would be an administrative function of the planning director. Telecommunication facilities, we wanted to spell that out too. If you're less than 35 feet, we could review those. Any construction not visible from a public right-of-way. So perhaps to the rear of a property or something like that. Food trucks with a temporary permit. The other change is any signs that were lit. So even if you had a 10 square foot sign that used to be lit, you'd have to come before the DHRC. One of the significant changes is that can be, if it's under 50 square feet lit or unlit, a planning director can approve, may approve, it can still refer it to the DHRC. Anything over 50 lit or unlit would be DHRC. So there's some changes in addition to the 3 new maps, and our staff believes that this will bring into consistency, clarify the process for the public going forward, and hopefully have some consistent design standards in these 3 districts. Any questions or comments for us?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Fisher?
I think DHRC has way too much power. I'd like to review this further before we make a decision on it.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion to, I guess we need to open this for public comment before we do anything else. Does anyone have any public comment?
Table it to our next meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to table this until the next meeting. We have a second? We do not have a second. Okay. Do we have a motion of any kind on this matter? Or any discussion about this matter? Do we have anything at all about this matter?
Well, I'm inclined to agree slightly with Ryan, but I don't, there isn't a quick or easy fix. I don't agree entirely, but I do have some agreement with him. Sorry. Did you catch all that?
Mm-hmm.
You have some agreement, but not
I have
entirely.
some, yeah. I mean, I understand his concern. I understand why he made the statement. How to fix it, I don't know.
Okay.
Is this changing what they are allowed to oversee, or is this just changing that?
It broadens their
reach.
Their reach a little bit. It really does.
I've had several run-ins with the DHRC, and
the intent of the DHRC, I think, is to enforce development standards within those areas that are.
Yeah, but not to the point of hindering it. Yeah. Right.
Correct.
See the maps again.
Yeah, and let me just remind you that a number of things here will make it easier for development in these areas. you saw that list of items that can get staff
Administrative
approval
review.
without
Yeah.
having to go to the DHRC. As
Very good
Hillary
point.
mentioned, there are a number of areas, particularly residential areas on the map, that are no longer in the river corridor, as an example. And so there are a few areas that she mentioned where we've expanded the boundaries. And there are the few issues. Let me just say, one of the things that brought this up initially was, as Hillary mentioned, or maybe it was Jeff, right now you need, in order to require review under this ordinance, you have to be getting a building permit. There was a fairly high-profile issue downtown where someone painted the front of their building bright yellow and green. And so that's kind of what started these discussions, when people who were concerned about that realized that to paint your building in the downtown doesn't require any approval by anyone. And so as we looked at this, one of the things that we've looked at is if you're painting some neutral color or a color on a historic palette, that'll just basically be approved right away. This isn't, oh, we don't like that shade of blue, or, you know, it's unless you're wanting to paint something fluorescent or bright yellows or something like that, this shouldn't be too onerous, I don't believe.
On a side note, is there anything that could be added to this to make buildings that are downtown that are dilapidated, make people do something with them, all the way from the weeds growing up in the sidewalks to the sides of the buildings falling off, to the parapets falling off, to the eyesores.
Signs falling down.
Well,
yeah.
I'll give you two answers. The first answer for this is no. The longer answer is we've had a vacant buildings task force that's been meeting for the past 2 or 3 years. They have made a couple of recommendations. One is a vacant building ordinance that should be going to council within the next few months. And we've been working with downtown San Angelo on that. So any vacant buildings will have to be registered and inspected. A companion piece to that that'll be coming later is the property maintenance code. And what we're looking at is proposing that only apply downtown. And that would require the kinds of things that you're talking about. That process hasn't even started for that ordinance, but we are looking at things that would address the kind of concerns you just raised, but it wouldn't be through this ordinance. This is really only about reviewing when somebody wants to do something new on their property, not maintenance.
Can you go back to the administrative approval list? Is there anything on this list that would require a permit that you can approve administratively? Are we streamlining that process anymore, or?
Yes, telecommunication facility, signs require a permit. Any construction that's not visible from the street would be administrative approval. Temporary structures.
And previously, a lot of that was going to the DHRC for review.
Correct.
Which was gumming up and lengthening the process unnecessarily.
We can typically turn it around in days.
So if someone's doing, let's say, an interior finish out or repartitioning of their space, and there's no change on the street, but it requires a permit, it's going to go to you guys, and you're going to. Okay.
It won't even be an administrative approval, but it would, so this, not visible from the right-of-way, that would be like a rear of a building.
Yeah, if someone
downtown
was
that's not
rebuilding
visible.
the back wall of their building or
Right.
something. Okay. Okay.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the proposed changes.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. And a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 6-1. Director's report.
Just a couple of things. The items that you saw in your March Planning Commission meeting, those will be going to City Council tomorrow. And then these items, this DHRC item may be going the first meeting in May. The other items will be going the second meeting in May. Depending on timing, though, this one may also be going the second meeting in May, but in any case, we typically like to take text amendments separately, just so we kind of balance out the city council meetings. It's not as many items on one meeting. Only other thing I would say, I had sent you, gosh, a month ago about information about a training session. We didn't have any planning commissioners that could make it, but some of our staff went, and it was a really good training. We hope to bring back some of that information to you. A lot of it had to do with financial impacts of development and how we can take that into account, sort of long-term impacts to the city. So I think that's something you all would be interested in, so we'll try to bring some of that information back to you at some point.
Would be great. Thank you, John.
I'm sorry, let me add one more thing. One thing that we've came up, I think prior to this meeting, a number of commissioners may have been contacted about particular cases, and so we've gotten questions on when is it appropriate and when is it not appropriate to talk to applicants about their case or talk to other commissioners. And so hopefully at the next meeting, we'll be bringing you some training information from the city attorney's office on helping you all understand what's considered appropriate under the law and what's not.
Okay. Thank you. Future meeting agenda and announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is tentatively scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, May 21st in council chambers, South Meeting Room of McNeese Convention Center at 501 Rio Concho Drive. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have one correction on this, on the adjournment. It says that the minutes were posted on Friday, March 13th. It should be April.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do I need to read that notice? No. Okay, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.